Sigenergy Masterclass webinar. Now I can see there's already quite a few people in the queue, and the number is growing pretty rapidly. So look, I think we've probably almost got everyone in, so we'll just kick things off. Thanks everyone for coming today. There's 3 of us you're going to hear from today, and one of those people is myself. So I'm Stuart Fordyce. I'm the Sales and Operations Manager here at AC Solar Warehouse, and we've also got Pradeep, who is the Solutions Manager at Sigenergy. And if anybody's dealt with Sigenergy already, you've almost certainly dealt with Pradeep. He's just given us a little wave there, because he's a lot more than the Solutions Manager. He's the tech support, the trainer. He's everything when it comes to technicals and products at the moment. So you'll, if you haven't heard of Pradeep already, you most certainly will. And we also have Tom Peters, who is our engineering manager here at AC Solar Warehouse. And Tom also heads up our AC board department here in the business. So we'll get to that a little bit later on about what he's got cooking in the background when it comes to Sigenergy. And yeah, so us 3 today, we'll take you through this webinar. You'll hear a little bit from each of us, and we're also going to be answering questions in the chat throughout the whole time. So today's session, the first 30 minutes is going to be focused on who Sigenergy is, the company background, you know, who are Sigenergy and what is the buzz in the industry about? Why are they so talked about, and what are they doing that's different? And Pradeep's going to take you through that entire product line and talk about what they're capable of. After that, we're going to spend 10 minutes talking about their gateways, their capabilities, and also what you can do and what options you have when you go to larger systems, bigger than their standard gateways. We'll also have a little section on frequently asked questions. Now, we've been stocking and selling Sigenergy for a bit over a month now. And through our entire engineering team, our account management team, and our product specialist team, we've harbored a lot of questions. And there are a lot of questions because Sigenergy is something that's rapidly growing in the market. And we've just jotted down our 6 most commonly asked questions. And they're things that you can't get from data sheets and install manuals. So we'll try to give you that information that people are asking for. And then we've also got a short bit where we want to get some feedback from you. And this is your opportunity to participate in the webinar. And what we want to do is we have a new product that AC Solar Warehouse and AC Board would like to bring to the Sigenergy market. And we want to get your input on, is it something that you're interested in? And also, what's it worth to you? Because if you don't think it's worth what we think it's worth, then it's probably not worth it. So we're really keen to get your feedback on that. And then at the end, we've budgeted in about 10 minutes for a Q&A with me, Pradeep, and Tom, just to answer any burning questions that any of you might have about Sigenergy. And of course, after today, by the end of tomorrow, you should all get an email with a recording of this webinar. And you'll also get a suite of documents, including data sheets, and some specialty documents that we've generated to answer a lot of questions and clear things up about gateways. So that by the end of tomorrow, you should have all the information and all the documentation you need that if you want to go start pushing Sigenergy and including it in your portfolio, you should have everything you need. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Pradeep or your account manager at AC Solar Warehouse. Now, I just want to start off, before we get into all the technical stuff, everyone's first opportunity to get involved in the webinar. We just want to get a bit of a feel for how many of you who have joined us today, and there's quite a lot, I can see. How many of you are completely new to Sigenergy, and how many have at least a little bit of experience with it? I'll just give you all a minute or so to answer that one. Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you very much. That sort of stuff's really helpful. We can see there that the majority of the group today are here that haven't used Sigenergy before. This is a completely new product to them, which is excellent. And that's what we want to do. We want to answer the stuff. We want to show you about, introduce you to the product and show you things that you might not have seen at All Energy, or you might have missed if you didn't see it at All Energy. So thanks for that. That's really useful. Now, for those of you who are joining who haven't heard of AC Solar Warehouse or haven't dealt with us before, this is just a little bit about us. So we're a specialist wholesaler. We started in 2011, so we're coming up on our 15th year anniversary, which is exciting. We're primarily a wholesaler. We also have an engineering and manufacturing division. We kicked off in 2017, and today we build about 5,000 switchboards a year that go into Australian solar systems. We have 10 electrical engineers in our business, 2 of whom are the directors of the business, Grant and Dave, and 3 of whom are product specialists in our team. And if you haven't dealt with any of our product specialists, those are engineers who provide free, on-tap, technical and design and support advice to any of our customers at any time during business hours. And that's something we do to support our customers and try and go above and beyond in that space. A little fun fact about us, we're 100% employee owned and Australian owned. So not only are Tom and I also both part owners in the business, but if you ever talk to an account manager or anybody at AC Solar Warehouse, you're talking to a business owner at some point. And that's something that we do in our business and something we take a lot of pride in, because a lot of you are business owners yourselves, and you know the feeling that when something goes wrong, you just want to talk to the right person and you want to talk to a business owner, and we give you that option. And of course, we also sell and stock Sigenergy. We're not just Sigenergy Gateway specialists, which is something we also pride ourselves on. We also stock the product in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and soon in Cairns for those tuning in. And yes, we're excited to be a part of it. Now, with no further ado, I want to hand it over to Pradeep. Pradeep's going to take us through all the technical stuff. Welcome, mate. Over to you.
Thanks, Stu. Just a thumbs up if you can hear me. Yep. All good, great. Thanks for the great introduction. I'll just click on presentation here. Oh, sorry, that's not the presentation. Just give me a sec. There we go. All right, hopefully you guys can see the screen with Sigenergy, your green energy partner. So I'll quickly introduce myself again. Thanks for the great introduction, Stuart. So I'm Pradeep Anasuri. I'm one of the solutions managers at Sigenergy. Will Hall is the MD. If you guys have heard the presentation before, it most likely by Will. I'll try and do my best to mimic his accent, although I might fail miserably. So bear with me. So we'll just go through a few slides. We'll introduce the company. We'll go through a little bit of technical, mostly overview of the product, so you get a feel of what we're about. And then we'll open up for questions later, and we can have a chat about it later. So the founder and CEO is Tony Xu. He has been the president of Huawei AI business for over 23 years. So there's a lot of experience behind Sigenergy. Even though Sigenergy as a company is only about 2 years old globally, there's very, very highly experienced people like Tony, like the head of marketing, head of R&D, head of technical, head of global product management. So everyone combined have been in this industry for a very long time. And the faith that the investors put in Tony is what helped us as a company to grow so quickly. I'll just turn this chat off so I don't get distracted. Cool. So very quickly, in terms of the investors, we've got international investor firms like Walden International, Hillhouse Capital, and likes of them. And we've grown into over 1 billion Chinese RMB in just under 2 years globally. In Australia, the company was pretty much launched about all energy, so about a year and a little bit. But the CEC approval just came through last year in all energy for 3-phase. So we're only about 6-7 months old. But if you look at Solar Quotes, we've been voted as the second largest battery growth manufacturer or something like that. Our sales are getting close to over 10% of the market share. So it's a testament to people like yourself who are willing to support a good brand, get behind us and have faith, and basically try it out. So a little bit more about the company: over 10,000 square meters, global headquarters in Shanghai. So we are actually building another new manufacturing center to cater for this very rapidly growing demand. We've got this slide is slightly old, over 700 R&D personnel at the moment, and over 6 gigawatt hours battery production capacity. I'll introduce the product because I think there's quite a lot of people who haven't actually dealt with Sigenergy. So this is called the Sigen Store. The company name is pronounced Sigenergy. If you ask our German friends or European friends, they might say Sigenergy. But anyway, in Australia and New Zealand, we'll call it Sigenergy. The product itself is called Sigen Store. It's the world's first 5-in-1 energy system. So what is the 5-in-1? We'll have a look in the next slide. But the top part, I don't know if I move my mouse, you guys can see it, but I'm just trying to highlight the top part where it says Sigenergy. That's the inverter, PCS, EMS inbuilt. That's called the energy controller. And then just below that is a EV DC charger, and below that are battery modules. We won very prestigious awards like the Red Dot Design Award, IF Design Award, International Excellence Design Awards, which is, again, a testament to an excellent design team in the company. We'll go to the next slide. So what is the 5-in-1? So as I said, the PV inverter, the PCS, and the EMS. So power conversion system, energy management system, all built in to the inverter that we call the energy controller at the top. And then you've got the battery packs underneath. The DC charger, EV DC charger, it's optional. You don't have to have it, but if customer chooses to have it, that stacks right underneath the energy controller. And under that, you can stack the battery modules. Now, the great thing about Sigenergy is it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife because it can fit into multitude of scenarios. Because when we talk to a lot of retailers, they say, oh, we use this product for this, we use this product for this, we use this product for off-grid, we use this for AC couple, blah, blah, blah. The great thing about this is the Sigen Store fits almost all scenarios. You can AC couple it, you can DC couple it, you can use the same product on-grid or off-grid, residential or commercial. Later on, I'll show some slides where we stack multiple parallel units to get commercial capacities. And we're talking 3 megawatt hours, 4.6 megawatt hours, and so on around the world. It's IP66 rated, so the inverter and the batteries are fine outdoors. We'd recommend a little bit of a shade, just not in direct sunlight, because it is lithium iron phosphate. And it can do whole home backup, true 3-phase unbalanced whole home backup, and single-phase whole home backup with 0 millisecond load side disruption. There is a patented algorithm. I'm happy to share that Gateway document on how we achieve that. It doesn't go into extreme details, but it does give you an overview of how we achieve that. On to the next slide. So a little bit more details into it. So like I said, the top part is the Sigen energy controller. That's your hybrid inverter. Underneath that is an optional Sigen EV DC charging module. And underneath that, you can have batteries. Now, the batteries come in 2 sizes, either a 5 kilowatt hour or an 8 kilowatt hour. You can mix and match. And if you have parallel multiple stacks, you don't have to have the same inverter on top. You don't have to have the same number of battery modules. You don't have to have the same type of battery modules. The only thing I would say is bear in mind that because we can have multiple combinations, CEC made us list it in such a way that it's a pre-integrated BESS system. So just double check that the combination that you're after is CEC approved. And we've got more combinations that are in the pipeline to be approved as well. So back to the inverters or energy controllers, as we call it. Single phase, there's 5, 6 currently available and CEC approved. 8 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt, 12 kilowatt are awaiting CEC approval. I'm envisaging about 2 to 3 weeks approval, but again, it's in their hands, so we'll inform everyone as soon as the 8, 10, and 12 is approved. 3-phase, the full product range is CEC approved with batteries, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 29.9 or 30 kilowatt, and all of them are obviously hybrid. Bidirectional charging, there's two sizes, 12.5 kilowatts or 25 kilowatts. That's pure DC charging. There is an optional AC charger as well. We'll go into that later down the track. And battery capacity already touched on, 5 kilowatt hours or an 8 kilowatt hour module. Oversizing, you can go over 200%, provided that you don't exceed the datasheet parameters of short circuit current and open circuit voltage. So simple, fast installation. I'll show you guys a quick video in the next slide. So the reason for that is if you actually look at it, there's not a single wire, single cable that needs to be connected between the inverter and the batteries or the DC charger and the batteries. It's all optocoupler. It's kind of like Legos that just stack one onto the other. And you just bring your DC in, you bring your AC in, and you commission it. So there's not a single wire that you need to do. And I'll go through the advantages in the next slides as well about that. So auto networking feature, very fast commissioning. And there's one-click diagnosis, which doesn't eliminate user error, but it finds the user's error very quickly. Before the installer actually finishes commissioning, they can actually see what is correct, what is not correct on the app. So it doesn't actually let you finish the commissioning if there's any errors, which is much better than, you finish the commissioning, you have to come back later. So they say about 15 minutes stackable installation and about 5 minutes fast commissioning. I've personally experienced it. And of course, given that all the circumstances are correct, these times stack up. If the customer's internet, for example, is poor, or I've had some customers ask me for what their Wi-Fi password is. If there's things like that, then of course it can vary a little bit. But the stacking, we've done a 336 kilowatt hour project in Melbourne, and they were doing a live feed video, and these numbers actually stack up, which is extremely good to see. Even when I joined the company, I was quite surprised, didn't believe it until I started doing installations and commissioning myself. We'll go on to a quick video. I'll play this video. So you can do floor standing or wall mounting. So on the floor, you can put up to 6 batteries under the inverter. On the wall, you can put up to 2 batteries. So the bracket is the same for so wall mount can be used for the floor mount on the floor only. So wall mount comes with a couple of extra brackets than the floor mount, that's all. So up to 6 batteries. If there's an EV DC charger, then that takes up 1 slot. So you can have 5 batteries plus an EV DC. It comes with handles, so 2-person lift. The 8 kilowatt hour module is roughly around 72 kilos. The 5 kilowatt is around 52 kilos. So you stack the batteries, stack the energy controller on top. The optocoupler takes care of basically your power and your comms. And then there's some brackets that go on the left and the right-hand side. And then right at the top, M8 expansion bolts into the wall, the inverter secure. There's an AC cable on the inverter's left-hand side. There's an optional RS485 cable for a power sensor. There's a COM mod, which is your 4G dongle. This is a Wi-Fi antenna to connect to the customer's Wi-Fi, and then your DC cables for your PV input. And there's decorative covers on the left and the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, where this person is plugging it in, there is a LED strip that goes from the top to the bottom, and that plugs in at the top. That can show things like state of charge, battery discharging, charging, or they can just have it off, or they can have it as just a decorative thing. Go back to the presentation. That's the My Sigen app. That's how the commissioning goes. So you scan the QR code of the device, of the inverter, then you fill out the details, including the address, customer's email, and the customer actually gets how to access the app straight away from here. There's a fast software upgrade. In my personal experience, it took the shortest time it took was 46 seconds. The longest I've seen is about 3 to 4 minutes on a very poor internet off-grid site. You confirm all the parameters. You confirm that you can see all the devices. One-click diagnosis gives you any errors if there are any to correct. Otherwise, that's it. The commissioning is finished. Now, there's three key things in terms of safety, simplicity, and smartness or intelligence. So we'll deal with the safety aspect. It is a low voltage battery at 32.85 volts for the static battery voltage, and it ramps up to 600 volts for single phase or up to 900 volts for three phase. We're using 280 amp hour, very dense battery cells. That's how we're able to achieve these longer cycle life, higher energy density. In terms of warranty, we don't actually count the cycles because that's a bit unfair. So we go with the minimum throughput or 10 years, whichever comes first. Five-layer battery protection. Again, there was a video here, but if you jump on YouTube, Sigenergy channel, there's plenty of YouTube videos, and you can see our handsome Will on there as well. He'll talk about the battery safety and all these tests that we've done. So it's got 5 layers of safety. It's got cell level temperature monitors, 7 active temperature sensors. It's got aerogel insulated pads between each of the cells. There's a decompression valve on the left-hand side of the battery to release any kind of gases that may build up. There's high temperature resistance insulation pads on the whole of the inner pack wall. And as a last resort, there is an internal fire extinguisher as a last defense. That goes off at around 170 degrees centigrade, and then that will isolate that battery pack. The rest of the batteries all have individual DC-DC optimizers, so they can still function. And if you've got multiple stacks in a commercial scenario, you've got a lot of redundancy built in. And there's real-time monitoring, which the customer can access, installers can access. They can see the temperature. They can see which cell is being used up to that granularity. If we compare the architecture of the batteries, so on the left-hand side is Sigenergy, on the right-hand side is most of the other battery manufacturers. Most of the others have the batteries connected in series, whereas we do it in parallel. And like I mentioned before, there's DC-DC optimizers built into each battery module. So what's so great about that? You can mix and match batteries. You can have different SOC when you're adding new batteries. So there was an installer that called me yesterday and asked, how long should I wait for the battery to discharge before I add a new module? And I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, for other manufacturers, I need to wait. So I said, no, you don't need to. You can actually plug and play. And there's a button called post-sale service. You click that, you scan the QR code of the inverter. It finds all the new battery modules, new AC charger, anything else that's connected. It does a software update and ready to go. So you don't actually have to wait for discharging, and you can actually add new battery modules when the customer wants to expand a year, 2 years down the track as well, which is very flexible. We don't actually limit it. Now, with the DC charger, we say there's 25 kilowatts and 12.5 kilowatt. Now, how that 25 kilowatt or the 12.5 kilowatt DC is made up, it's made up from 3 sources. You can actually get the DC power from the PV panels directly, from the batteries directly, and it can also use the grid, use the inverter to convert that into DC. So all 3 sources, you can get 25 up to 25 kilowatts of DC charging into your car. And when we say fast charging, if you compare a traditional 7 kilowatt charge, in an hour, you'll get about 40 kilometers. With a 25 kilowatt EV DC, you're getting in the same hour about 130 kilometers. So you're getting about over 3 times. And with the bidirectional charger, the EV DC is ready for V2X. So vehicle to home, vehicle to grid. Bear in mind, right now, vehicle to grid is not yet approved. Vehicle to home is not yet approved because of the car manufacturers haven't actually opened their interoperability protocol. In saying that, we're testing with over 40 or 50 different leading car manufacturers, and the tests are extremely positive. So stay tuned, keep an eye on this side of things. There's some exciting things about to happen. Now, the gateway, I think there's supposed to be another slide about AC chargers, but I'm not sure if there is. But if I jump back, there is an optional AC charger as well that comes in 7, 11, or 22. 7's obviously for single phase, 11 or 22 for 3 phase. That's your normal smart EV AC charger. As long as you install it with the Sigen store setup, you get the full smart features. the only thing with the AC charger is it can't do bidirectional. If customer wants bidirectional ability, V to home, V to grid, they need the DC charger. Now with the gateway, this is a critical part if the customer wants backup functionality for grid outage protection. We have two standard gateways, single phase and three phase. Single phase standard gateway, you can connect up to 2 inverters or total of 12 kilowatts or less. With the three phase, I need to update the slide because it says 2 systems. You can actually have up to 3 systems or total 60 kilowatts AC or less. So anytime you need larger capacity of inverters, then as Stu mentioned at the beginning, we need a custom gateway, and we'll go into more details of that later. With the gateway, you can parallel multiple systems. You can AC couple by putting the third-party inverter into smart port of the gateway. You can get full backup protection during a grid outage. And it's a 0 millisecond load side disruption. I've experienced it myself. I was overseas at a distributor's office, and the power goes off at 5 p.m. every day on the dot. And at 5 p.m., suddenly the power went off. And we're like, no, we shouldn't notice this. And the reason is that day the power actually went off at 1 p.m. and we've been using the uninterrupted energy flow without even realizing that it was using backup. So that was a good experience. Now, the next 3 or 4 slides go through different SLDs. I won't go through all of them, but basically you can do whole home backup. You've got your PV connected to your inverter, energy controller. All you need is a Cat6 cable or a LAN cable between the gateway and inverter. And then to connect the inverter to the internet, you can either hardwire it to the router, you can have Wi-Fi, you can have a 4G dongle. We can provide the 4G dongle as an optional accessory. It's an additional cost, but it comes with 2-year SIM card prepaid. It's a global SIM card. And after 2 years, customer simply just purchases their own SIM card, and they can just replace the SIM card, or they can have home Wi-Fi. So this is whole home backup, 3-phase or single phase. You can do partial backup. With single phase gateway, you can put partial backup through the gateway and you still don't need an additional power sensor. With the 3-phase gateway, if it's partial backup and the backup circuits are not going through the gateway, then you need an additional accessory again called the power sensor, which is basically our CT meter for grid side monitoring. You can do pure off-grid only. Again, it's exactly the same setup. For off-grid, you must have the gateway, and it's exactly the same setup. You just don't have the grid input. There is a generator input, again, into the smart port. For customers that have genset, they want to have an input. The smart port is already pre-built in the gateway. They can connect the generator. The generator can also go into the grid port in this case. There is a small setting under gateway settings that you just need to click and choose that the grid port is where the generator is coming from. Retrofit, so AC couple or DC couple. So we're doing a lot of retrofits at the moment with some of the major other inverter manufacturers, and it seems to be working extremely well. So yeah, retrofit, again, it's the same setup. You can either bring the third-party inverter into the smart port of the gateway, or you could leave it on the mains, either on the backup side or the non-backup side. You just need to add another power sensor to monitor that third-party inverter. There's a lot of flexibility here. And that helps with a lot of designs, because some of them were saying, I'll go into the next one, on grid only, of course, you can do PV plus storage. There was a system where the shed was far away from the house. The shed had the main switchboard. The house was a sub-circuit. They obviously didn't want to, you can't put the Sigenergy store on the shed because of the DC cable run. So the AC input into the inverter can be from the gateway or from the sub-mains. All you need is a Cat6 comms between the inverter and the gateway, and the gateway can sit 20, 30, 40, 80 meters from the Sigenergy store, and you still get full backup. You're still getting seamless switch over, all the features, which is great with the gateway design. I'll quickly touch on this. There is another model which is called the hybrid inverter as a grid tied only. It comes locked, and customer pays an unlock fee, and they can add battery modules at any time. With this model, it's called the hybrid model under Clean Energy Council. 5 and 6 single phase is CC approved. The rest of them are just awaiting approval. On-grid system PV now, and then future expansion. Now, with our 3-phase full backup, it is a 3-phase 4-wire design. So you're actually getting 100% output in the backup. So the inverter or the energy controller doesn't really care whether it's in on-grid or off-grid mode. It's the gateway relay that actually flips on-grid or off-grid. So you're not getting 33% or half or essential circuits only. You're actually getting true 100% backup. Oh, there is the AC charger. Yep, I just moved the slide a little bit later. So this is the AC charger. I think I mentioned 7, 11, 22. It comes in 3 sizes. It's the same platform, same MySigen app. Very, very easy to install. And it aligns extremely well and extremely quickly with the Sigen Store ecosystem. If the customer's already got a Sigen Store, you can actually connect it via hardwire, Ethernet to the gateway, to the inverter, directly to the router, or just have it on the same Wi-Fi network, and it auto finds it, auto networks it, and the customers seem to love it, because now we got the green power mode, we got dynamic charging mode. The customer can actually adjust, 6 amps all the way to 32 amps. It's got dynamic load management, all the really cool features that you'd expect from a leading AI company. MySigen is the name of the app. It's available on iOS, Mac, Android, Windows. It's the same app for the installers and the end users, but obviously the interface is different. The installers can do a lot more than what the homeowners can, but the homeowners have pretty much full freedom to control their system how they'd like it to work. I don't know if there's another slide about AI, but I'll touch on it. Of course, it's VPP capable. We've already integrated with Evergen, Amber, and there's 3 or 4 others in the pipeline as well. And very quickly, I'll touch on this one. There is a ChatGPT 4 integrated service inbuilt. It's free. You just need to go under settings, lab, and enable this one. So the customer can use it to ask questions like, how do I change my lighting settings? Or how do I change my operational mode? Or how much energy did I use last week? Show me the charts, things like that. Also, the installer can actually ask questions like, where do I plug in this smart meter to monitor third-party sensor? It's got all the data from the data sheets. We've fed in thousands and thousands of questions to it, and it's learning, evolving. It's really, really great. If you want to get tech support, of course, you can call us, or, you can give this a go. Most of the time, it answers the questions really, really well. So ChatGPT 4 inbuilt as well. VPP done. Quickly go through the next slide. I forgot the time when we started, but I'll quickly go through the summary, and then I'll touch on the commercial. So commercial is actually exactly the same product. So we'll finish in the next 5 minutes. So with commercial, it's very flexible configuration. It's exactly the same product. All you're doing is you're paralleling multiple Sigen stores. So on the right-hand side, you've got your traditional cabinet solution. I've asked someone who's a very big retailer in the commercial space, and they mentioned, actually, we prefer the container solution because everything is done and we just plonk it on there. And then we said, okay, so how long would it take to actually do from start to finish? And they said, to lay the concrete, to do the building works, to do all this, about 6 months. And we said, how about this? You can actually stack it, and you're not actually needing any concrete flooring or anything like that. And there's no wiring and all this. And they were like, we didn't know about that. So they adapted us very quickly. It's been about 6 months, and they haven't looked back. So it's a really, really great solution for small to medium CNI. I think once you start getting around 5 megawatt hours, that seems to be the sweet spot. There's another product for that above 5, which I think we'll talk about later. So easy to install, exactly the same things. Optocoupler just stacks in. No need for heavy cranes, no special large foundations, no exposure to high voltage cables, and the footprint is just absolutely phenomenal in terms of, I'll show you some of the examples. This is a 3 megawatt hour project in Spain. The picture that you can see is 2 megawatt hours, and on the side of where we took the photo from, there's another megawatt hours. So yeah, you just stack multiple of them. all of these have 6 batteries underneath, but you can have uneven stacks as well. This is a Spanish winery, 1 megawatt with 3 megawatt hour storage. Beautiful there. And it's extremely hot actually, and there's no real air cons or anything. It's just a slightly ventilated scenario. And this is a mine site in Spain. The customer had another quote from a competitor, and they were going to take up this truck spot where the container was going to go. And they were blown away that we could just, stack these against the wall with such a small footprint. And they were happy to have all those big mining trucks coming and parking there. So that's a big win for them and for us. That's 400 kilowatt hours, 200 kilowatt PV, 250 kilowatt AC, and it's generating as we speak. Next one, this is an office campus with multiple DC chargers. It looks beautiful at nighttime. This is in Shanghai. This is a 250 kilowatt PV system, 400 kilowatt hour storage, and there's 10 systems, each of them with an EV DC charger. So there's 10 25 kilowatt DC chargers. Oh, I had a lot more examples, but I guess in lieu of time, if you go on Sigenergy YouTube channel and just go global CNI cases, there's multitude of them. I'm sure something is you're meant to find one more fascinating than the other. So please feel free to do that. We have a Facebook group for installers. You can scan the QR code, join the installers Facebook group, and also there's a Facebook end users Australia New Zealand group as well. I'd recommend you join that as well, because there's quite a lot of leads and quite a lot of questions from end users that come up. And it's a good way to build that relationship with the end user if you like. Obviously, there's LinkedIn and YouTube, Sigenergy channel, and our website. If you just go to sigenergy.com/au, and then you can go into support download, there's multitude of information there. There's a certification course, there's videos, there's brochures, all kinds of things in there. And of course, that's my part. And then I'll pass you back on to Stuart, and then we'll come back, meet again for the questions. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Pradeep. I'll just switch our screens over. All righty. Can you hear and see me okay? Nice. Excellent. Thanks for that, Pradeep. All right. Well, that was the first part of the webinar. The second part, like Pradeep mentioned, we're going to talk about gateways. And look, Pradeep had to power through a lot of that stuff to try and give you a bit of an exposure to everything. And similarly with gateways, there's a lot we can talk about. And there's a lot of questions. That Facebook group that Pradeep mentioned before is really useful, because there's a lot of conversations going on there about different installations, and it's very collaborative. There are a lot of questions about gateways, and in the next 15 minutes, we want to simmer down some of the really important things that aren't in manuals. Now, I see there's a lot of questions that have come through that are still in the moderated queue, because a lot of those questions are going to be answered in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So if you still have your question at the end of the next, in 20 minutes time, then please post your question again, and we'll do our best to answer it. All right, now a lot of you are probably installers, and we know that installers are the surgeons of switchboards. They love to see the guts inside them and get behind it. So I've put a photo here of inside a single phase gateway, so you can see the escutcheon, and a photo of behind the escutcheon, you can see all the switch gear and the wiring and how it's labeled. So some of the things to note are the common power rating across the single phase gateway is 12 kilowatts. And you can install up to 2 energy controllers on this gateway. A couple of different combinations. There are still the 8, 10, and 12 being approved for the CEC, and like Pradeep mentioned, hope to get an answer soon, but it is entirely in the CEC's hands. But 12 kilowatts is the rating of this one. Now, there is a bypass switch that's installed in every Sigenergy gateway, in both the single phase and the 3-phase feature. Now, for those of you who don't know what the bypass is, it enables you to supplement your backup loads by the grid. In the event where you have to isolate your battery or your inverter from the grid for whatever reason, it allows you to keep supply to those critical loads. Now, the bypass switch comes with a couple of cool features. It has a toggle sensor. I'm not sure if anybody can see my mouse here, but it has a toggle sensor next to that leftmost breaker, or the nextmost piece of switchgear in that board. And it feeds back to the brains of that gateway so that in your installer app and in the homeowner's app, they can see when their system is being bypassed, which is really important because in normal operation, all these breakers will be in the closed or up position, and a homeowner can easily come along and go, well, this one's down, I better flick it back up, and all of a sudden they're in bypass mode. So just to minimize the chance of that, they've also got a physical restriction pin here, which can be easily removed without a tool, but it just puts that little barrier in place for the homeowner so they don't accidentally come and put their system into bypass mode and they're complaining to you because their power bill is so big. So that's a really important feature. Now, the single phase gateways don't come with surge protection inbuilt, but there is enough room in the switchboard to easily add that. Now, looking at the three-phase gateway, it's essentially the exact same setup when it comes to bypass switch, inverter inputs, very similar arrangement, but more beefed up, and a lot of it's 4-pole because we have input generator inputs in both the single phase and three-phase options. Now, I don't have a photo here of the discussion, but again, a very similar setup. The rating you need to work off for the three-phase gateway is 60 kilowatts. Now, that does mean that with Sigenergy installs, with the 2 currently available gateways, you're limited to 12 kilowatt single-phase systems or 60 kilowatt three-phase systems. Now, there are solutions to go bigger than that, but it's something to keep in mind because there are additional costs when you go above those system sizes. It's really important if you go and quote an 80 kilowatt job, make sure you're across this, you give us a call first because you don't want to get caught out by an extra 5 or 10 grand on that job. An important note on this gateway is that there are 3 default incoming breakers for your inverters, but there is only a maximum of 2 inverters to be connected to this gateway. Now, they put 3 in there because there's 2 63 amp breakers and 1 40 amp breaker, and that just allows you to do different combinations, whether you want to do 2 30 kilowatts or you want to do a 30 and a 20, for example. But on the excursion above those breakers, there is a very clear label saying only use a maximum of 2 inverters. And that's really important to take note of. Now, with this gateway, you can have the largest EV charging unit on it, which is the 22 kilowatt option, and there's an 11 and a 22 kilowatt option, but you can go up to that. And it includes bypass, and the 3-phase version also includes a 3-phase and neutral surge protection, just because these are typically be used on bigger systems where it's more important to have that. Now, there's also this thing called a smart port. Now, the smart port we'll get into in the next session. It's actually question number 1 on the FAQs. Now, what is a smart port? So the smart port is a contactor and a breaker in line. So the system can completely isolate or like open and close this contactor to engage or disengage that breaker. And there's a breaker in both the single phase and the 3-phase gateway that allows you to put either a generator, a third-party solar system, or a smart load of some sort. And that load might be something that you want to, the homeowner wants the ability to switch it on and off for whatever reason. But it also might be a load that you use to shed energy, like a pool pump. And that's what you put through that smart load. But there's only one smart port in each of the gateways. So if you're doing an off-grid system with a generator or a third-party solar system, you'll have to pick one or the other to engage it in a smart way. Now, part of this is that how we often get asked, can the Sigenergy energy controllers control third-party solar systems via frequency control? And the answer is yes. You do have to stick to a 1-to-1 ratio currently. That's what the Sigenergy manual will dictate. And that means if you've got a 10 kilowatt energy controller, a single phase gateway, you can have no bigger than 10 kilowatts of a third-party solar system coming through that smart port. With the exception of an end-phase system, you can go larger with an end-phase system because you can get the Envoy and the Sigenergy system to talk, and it can access the DRM function of the energy of the Envoy and allow you to reduce the inverter capacity when it's in off-grid mode. Number two, can a single-phase generator be connected to a three-phase gateway? The answer is no. You have to stick to the number of phases. So with a three-phase gateway, you have to have a three-phase generator. Number three, can you have a two-phase Sigenergy site with backup? You can, but you have to be aware that it will be two separate single-phase sites currently. Now that's something that might change in the future, but if you do have one of these remote or SWER jobs where you've got to try and make something work with a two-phase setup, you will have to do two separate systems. Question number four, how are Sigenergy gateways mounted? Now, all of the enclosures are a custom Sigenergy IP rated enclosure. And to keep that IP rating, they have external brackets. So you mount the bracket on the wall first, and then you hang this enclosure onto those brackets. And the benefit of that is that it makes it a lot easier to maintain the IP rating of these enclosures, which is really important because as we see on Facebook, there's a lot of these sites that have to go outdoors for space or heat reasons, you know? But what that does mean is that it reduces the ability to do rear entry as nicely. So it's something you sacrifice for that IP rating to be a little bit easier to manage. Number five, how is the Sigenergy Gateway wired? Well, firstly, on the inside door of each of the gateways, there is a line schematic diagram which shows how that system is wired, which is great to have, both for new installs and if you're coming to a site and you want to work out what's going on. They have labeled glands on the bottom of each of the enclosures. So as you can see, I'll just go back a slide. As you can see here at the bottom of this enclosure, you can see 3 glands, but there is 5. And they align with the switch gear that it's running into, and they're labeled accordingly. So this gland here on the left will say grid supply, and it's an appropriately sized gland, pre-installed, and it goes straight into your main supply breaker, for example. And it's all pre-labeled, so it's very easy to see how things are wired up. And what do I do if I require a gateway system larger than 12 kilowatts single phase and greater than 60 kilowatts three phase? Now, this is something we're being asked multiple times a day at the moment because this is becoming quite common. As Pradeep mentioned in his presentation, that the current solution is also designed and it is in a sweet spot for small to medium C&I battery storage solutions. So we're seeing a lot of 200, 300, 400, 500 kilowatt solutions being utilizing Sigenergy where they require backup and they require a custom gateway. And that's where AC board come in. So I want to run a quick poll again, just to pick your brains on how common are these jobs for you guys? Like how many jobs are we running into that are going to require these custom gateways? We assume it's a pretty small percentage, but it's just good to get everyone's feedback while we have a bunch of retailers on here to hear your opinions. And this information really helps us as a business building these boards to forecast stock of components and bring lead times down. I'll just give another 10 seconds or so for everyone to find those buttons and click them. So as I'm seeing the data come through, it's looking like somewhere around the 2 to 5% is where we're seeing things, which is quite common. 2 to 5% of installs, roughly across the people we've got today, think they're going to need a custom gateway, which is quite a lot. which is great to hear, because that's what that's what the next part of this webinar is all about. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's really appreciated. Now, custom gateways. So how you go about it and what do they cost? Two very common questions we get. So what happens is when you've got a system, there's a lot of information, well, not a lot, but there is some information that we need from you to be able to accurately quote these boards. And it's things like, are you storing it on-grid, off-grid, number of phases, generator option and size, all the inverter information. And the good thing about custom gateways, it gives you the ability to not have a bypass switch if you don't need it. You may have secondary network protection requirements, particularly if it's above 200 kVA, and we can merge those boards together, and that can save you quite a bit of money. But you also can avoid ancillary things that you don't necessarily need. So if you're going to go custom, you might as well go fully custom. Now, the price does vary considerably from a 80 kilowatt job with 2 inverters, or 3 inverters, I should say, or whether you've got a 500 kilowatt job. But we're finding that typically the median price of a custom Sigenergy gateway is around the 10 to 15 mark. We're seeing a few boards come through at that 18 to 20 mark because they're particularly larger systems. But typical, 100 or 200 kilowatt jobs, you can expect to be in that price range. Now, that might come as a shock. It sounds pretty expensive, and it is probably a little bit, well, it is a little bit more expensive than it should be right now. And that is because the cost of the specialized components that go in these boards are quite expensive at the moment. And that's something that Pradeep and Will are working on with us at AC Solar Warehouse to try and get those components down. And hopefully that's something we can do in time. But at the moment, you're still looking at maybe 10 to 15 grand for one of these boards if you're, which accompany a job that might be $200,000 or $300,000 worth of Sigenergy stock. So it's still in the comparable range. We'd like to see that price come down in time, and that's something we're working on in the current time. Now, like I mentioned there, the cost of the equipment is actually significantly more than the board. And to keep costs down on these custom gateways, one of the things we can do is that if you're also purchasing the stock from us and you're buying $200,000 or $300,000 worth of stock, if you're buying a $10,000 or $15,000 board, we can do a lot to cut as much cost as we can out of our bottom line on the board in order to help make that viable until we can get the cost down on those boards. So consider it a bundle package, but that's something that we can offer. And it's one of the benefits of dealing with AC Solar Warehouse and AC Board, because AC Board is a part of AC Solar Warehouse and they are a board manufacturer. And you get all the benefits of dealing direct with a board manufacturer, whilst also getting all the benefits of dealing with a wholesaler, like credit terms, fast response time, stock in different locations and things like that. So that's something that we do, and we spend a lot of time and money in order to bring that value to you guys as our customers. And we're always keen to work with you on these bigger projects where you need these custom gateways to work out a package solution for you. And to do that, if you have any of these projects coming up, the best way to get in touch with us is just through your account manager at AC Solar Warehouse, or if you have anybody at AC Solar Warehouse's contacts, feel free to just get in touch with them. Also, if you talk to Pradeep or anyone at Sigenergy, they might just put you in touch with us directly. And we can send you this information request form, get that data back, and we can usually quote you within a day. The lead time is where it's sitting at about 3 to 4 weeks at the moment, but for these larger projects, people usually find that that's pretty workable. All right, so we'll do a Q&A at the end of this about custom gateways, but I just want to sidetrack for a little bit and talk about a new product that I want people's feedback from. So let's talk about label kits. Now, there's been a lot of feedback on the Facebook page and through our customers over the past couple of months about label kits. The price and the availability and the quality of them. And what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, we'll have our own label kit, which will be around the $50 mark. And there's lots of options when it comes to bulk label kit options. You can go pretty cheap. I mean, we could bring a label kit to you that's worth about 10 or 15 or 20 bucks, but we wouldn't be happy that it's actually going to last more than a couple of years and not discolor in the sun quickly. So it's important that it doesn't discolor and it meets the standards over the life of the system. And to get, in our experience, a decent quality label kit to suit a Sigenergy system, you're looking at about the $50 mark. So we'll have that solution pretty quickly. What we're doing currently is we're building them in-house with our own manufacturing tools and supplying them with systems. We have a limited quantity because we're building them ourselves, and we're subsidizing at the moment because we lose money when we're building ourselves, but that's okay. If it's going with the system, we're still supplying them about 50 bucks. Now, when it comes to label kits, the next bit of feedback we see is that they can take a nice, sexy Sigenergy install and ruin it. And it is a bit of a shame that you have to be compliant. You have to put all these really ugly stickers. You can tell that no one in the standards committee works in marketing because they could have prettied them up a little bit. But what we want to do is we want to propose or get your feedback on what we call a pro label kit. And I've actually got a sample here in front of me. If you can look away from the screen at my little camera, what this is it's either going to be an aluminium plate powder coated plaque with all the necessary labels for your system, bar a couple of extra ones that you can put in discrete areas. But all the obvious ones that you have to stick out and display, it puts them all in one nice, neat area that you can put in a position that's equidistant. Now, we've done a little mock-up here. I know that the installers are going to say, yeah, you got conduit glands coming out of the bottom there that we've got to get in the way of that. Besides the point, that's the sort of structure that we're looking at. Is this plaque? It's 340 millimeters by 340 millimeters, and it's either going to be an aluminium powder coated plate or it'll be a sandwich aluminium material that's quite heavy duty and it's UV rated to last the test of time. Complies with standards. It's really high quality. And the question for you guys is that, is this of value to you? Is spending a little bit of extra money on a job to make a nice, neat and professional install actually worth anything? So I want to run a little quick survey, understanding what this product is and how it looks. What do you guys think it's worth? Now, there's an option there to say, honestly, I'd rather just use a label kit. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But if there's people out there who want to make things nice and fancy, or you've got $1 million architectural home and the last thing you want to do is slap a bunch of stickers on it so it looks like a backpacker's combi van, and you want to do something nicer, is this something that's worth 60, 80, or is it worth 150 bucks to do it? So that's what I want to know. It obviously will come with a small packet of labels that will go in the main switchboard as well, that just to make it compliant. But the main labels are on here. I'll just give everyone a few more moments to think about that. Seeing a few comments. Yes, 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 definitely. That's excellent. Excellent. Nice label. We're looking at making our own. Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised. It's a pretty common thing. For us to, this is really useful feedback because for us as a wholesaler, we have the ability to buy, 4,000 or 5,000 of these to make it a little bit more viable. But we want to make sure that we can put them at a price that you guys are actually going to use them. So thanks for answering that. Almost everyone's answered that, so I'll close off the voting. But that is really, really useful information. Thank you. So you'll probably hear from, we're going to be emailing you tomorrow with all the information from that. I see a mention there for mounting holes, and yes, they will, if you can see that in my camera, have little mounting holes in there. You'll get an email from us at some point in the near future telling you how you can buy these things and what their price is going to be. But if you really want one and you want to pre-order them, please get in touch today. Yeah, sure. And if you're in Cairns too, drop around and have a look at it. We can show you what it looks like in person. Now, I just want to thank everyone for their time today. There's quite a few of you in here, and we really appreciate both your time and listening to this and giving it the chance to hear about Sigenergy, what they're all about, but also to engage in the webinar. We had some really good response rates in there and some really good feedback, and we're really keen to hear about what questions you guys have and what feedback and ideas you guys have as well. We find these webinars really useful, and we really appreciate all of your support, especially during this industry when it's a pretty tough time for a lot of people. Supporting Australian businesses and all of you out there that do that, it's really appreciated, and we thank you all for that. So thanks everyone. We'll open it up for Q&A, and we'll get Tom and Pradeep on the mic, and we'll just try to start answering all the unanswered questions. Label space for co-branding. That is an excellent idea, Keith. We'll feed that back to the AC board team and see if we can do that. That'd be great. All
right, we'll go through the questions. There's quite a lot of questions. Did you want me to just start reading out the question and start answering, Tom?
I think so, Pradeep. I think most of the questions are in your field, so I'll let you run.
There's one there for Jeff, Pradeep, if you can have a go at. Are there any wireless comms available between the gateway and the inverter?
Yeah, cool. So at the moment, between the gateway and the inverter, it's still a wired Cat6 cable. I am working with R&D to see if we can have a wireless option. The reason they're a bit hesitant is to get that 0 millisecond switchover. With a Cat6 cable, you can get 100 megabits per second. With the RS485 cable, for example, between the power sensor and the inverter, that's like 9.6 kilobits per second or something. So we're talking, a massive difference in speed. So, but my argument is you don't always have to have that 0 millisecond load side disruption. Sometimes it's okay to have a longer disruption. So we are looking at that. It is in the development pipeline. I can't promise you any timelines or if we're even going to go down that road. But as of now, you do need a wired comms between the gateway and inverter. There was another question. Someone was talking about the shed and the house. You don't actually have to have AC connection between the gateway and inverter. You can have the AC from any of the sub-mains downstream. You can have the gateway at the mains, have full backup. So that part is okay. I'll quickly rattle through some of the other questions. Cover for the left-hand side of the hybrid, it's tough to keep it neat. Yes, 100% agree. So with the hybrid inverter, as it comes out of the box, it does have wall brackets automatically included in there. So you can put a hybrid inverter without any batteries straight on the wall. But you obviously have the choice of purchasing a wall mount kit or a floor mount kit. And that kit comes with the side covers and the top cover. So nothing stopping you from purchasing that for a hybrid inverter. With the energy controller, again, the same thing. When you're adding the batteries, you have a nice little covers on the left and right and the top with the floor mount or the wall mount kit. You don't have to have it, but if you'd like it, you can have it for the hybrid as well. You can purchase that. Any possible implication if the PV is undersized? No, not really. If you look at the data sheet, the startup voltage from memory, I think it's about 180 volts for 3-phase, and it's about, I think it's about 60 or 70, 60 or 80 volts. I can't remember. I've got a brain fade on single phase. So definitely you can undersize, you can oversize. We say on the data sheet it's 200% for single phase, 160% for 3-phase, but I'm happy to share the declaration that you can go over 200% as well, which is going to be accepted by your STC rebate providers. You can go over 200% provided you don't exceed the other parameters in the data sheet. We'll leave some of the questions which can be answered by the data sheets or user manuals, and we'll quickly go through. There's just a lot of questions. I'm more than happy to stay back an hour and go through all of them. It just depends on if anyone else wants to go for dinner or not. I'm just going to scroll up.
Yeah, while you're looking through that, Pradeep, everyone will get an email tomorrow with all the data sheets showing maximum and minimums when it comes to PV connections and things like that. The data sheets are really simple to use, And rather than go through all of those now, we'll just send them all to you. And if there are any follow-up questions, you can simply just reply to AC Solar Warehouse tomorrow when we send out those data sheets. Or give us a call and we'll just talk you through it.
Cool. I've just scrolled up a little bit because we missed a few questions. Can you explain how the generator acts with the stack through the smart port? Does the generator supply to the load? Yes, 100%. So genset or the grid always prioritizes the load, and any excess power goes to charge the batteries. And it's the same when you have a third-party inverter. Someone asked about Enphase in the group. Again, it supplies to the load, prioritizes the load, and any excess power, it charges the batteries. And yes, it's black start capable, even if you don't have any panels attached to the Sigenergy inverter. But we'd recommend having a few panels to the Sigenergy inverter just in case if it's a pure off-grid, there's no other AC source, in case of a system where the batteries are completely flat.
Yeah, okay. There's a message there from Zubin to answer your question. One of the documents you'll all get tomorrow is essentially a kit size calculator showing you all the different CEC approved combinations and what components or what quantity of each component you're required for each setup. So you just select whether you want it off grid or on grid, and it'll specify all the different combinations for you. So you'll get that tomorrow.
Cool. There was another question here. Do we need a gateway to achieve accurate export limit? In this particular case, there's already a third-party inverter, and we'll add a Sigen inverter. So the answer is, whenever export limit is concerned, the gateway acts as a power sensor because the grid port in the gateway has CTs. So either a gateway or a power sensor is required to achieve export limit. You don't need both. If you're doing full backup via gateway, you can just use the gateway as your grid side meter. You don't need a power sensor. If you're doing partial backup, yes, you need another power sensor to monitor the grid side, and that'll act automatically. It will overrule the gateway grid side, and it'll act as a export meter or grid side sensor. Really good questions, by the way. There was a question about DC cable length. It's 7.5 meters. Can we extend it? Now, at the moment, the option is 7.5 meters. We do have another 10-meter option, and we're looking at even longer one. It all depends on the market feedback. If there's only 2 people in whole Australia and New Zealand that need it, we may reconsider it. If there's a lot of people that actually want longer cable lengths, then no problem at all. We have it. We're just thinking whether to bring it or not.
There's 2 questions there about smart ports, Pradeep, which are good questions. Can we have multiple smart ports? Is it possible? And can we divert excess energy to hot water systems via the smart port?
Yep, I'm trying to find that question. I don't know where it is, but that's fine. So at the moment, Australia, New Zealand, gateway versions that we have 1 smart port. In US, people want exactly this. So they're happy to pay for 5 or 6 smart ports. It's not hard to make, but our control board in Australia and New Zealand at the moment allows for 1 smart port. So to answer that question about excess PV, again, that's in the works. I think it's 2 more releases after this. There's a new app release end of February, and there'll be another 2. And after that, one of those releases will have excess PV option for the smart port loads, meaning, as Stuart mentioned, you can have a controllable load connected to the smart port. At the moment, what you can do is you can turn it on or off via the app. You can set it to automatically turn on or off based on the SOC of the battery. So start when the battery SOC is X amount, stop when it's X amount. Another thing you can do is time of use. Start at this time, stop at this time. People use that for, free power during 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. to heat up the pool or whatever. And the next option is going to be excess PV. That's not yet available, but it will be available after 2 more releases of the app. It's in development. What else? Can we divert energy? Yep, we've done that. Surge capacity for off-grid 3-phase and single-phase. So again, this is in the data sheets. As a quick overview, if you've got a 15 kilowatt 3-phase inverter, it can surge. Basically, all our inverters can surge 1.1 times continuous. So a 15 kilowatt 3-phase inverter can actually provide 16.5 kilowatt output continuous. It can also surge, for a 15 kilowatt inverter, it can surge 1.5 times, which is 22.5 kilowatts for 10 seconds. which is great for, pumps and motors and all that stuff. Have a look again at the datasheet for exact terms, because 25 and 30 are around 1.3 times. Most of the others are around 1.5 times for the 10-second surge. But all inverters can surge 1.1 times. Good question.
Pradeep, there's a question there about the three-phase, like say a 10 kilowatt three-phase inverter. When it goes into backup mode, is for the single-phase loads, are they limited to 3.84 kilowatts, or can they peak any higher than that?
Yeah, so as a general rule, we say it's 100% unbalanced. But again, if you use a 15 kilowatt inverter as an example, it can do 555 or 500. What it can't do is 15 kilowatts on one phase and 00. I don't think there's any product in the world that can do that. If there is, then I'd love to know more about it. But in terms of the surge, roughly 1/3 of it. But because of this 1.1 times, 1.5 times, you kind of go a little bit higher than divided by 3.
And just to add to that question for Daniel, when you have a 15 kilowatt inverter, you size the circuit breaker to a per phase current. So you can never put 15 kilowatts through a single phase. It would just trip the breaker anyway. So whether you're restricted on the inverter side, it doesn't really matter because you're restricted on the cable protection side anyway.
And just above that, there was a question: can you have a single phase AC coupled solar on the smart port on a 3-phase gateway? That's an excellent question, and the answer is yes. So we've got a customer here in New South Wales where they had 3 single-phase third-party inverters, and they put each of them 3 different single phases into 3 of the phases of the 3-phase gateway smart port, and it's working beautifully. It's basically just a load. A third-party inverter is just a load. So yes, you can. Any other questions I missed, guys, or just keep scrolling?
Did you want to have a go at answering Scott's question in the chat? What would be the cost of a single-phase gateway that would take 3 inverters, say 18 kilowatts of inverter? I have a customer with 2 6 kilowatts and may want extra power down the track.
So we're going to have to put some pricing, put a design together for that and price it up. So if you could, well, we've got your questions recorded here, so we'll reach out and get a bit more information and put together a design and quote for you after the session, if that's all right.
We'll get in touch, Scott. Thanks for your question.
Oh, I just saw that Tom already answered my question. I kept screaming at the top of my voice. Thanks, Tom. Is there an alarm notification when the grid goes down and the system operates in backup mode? Yes, the owner can subscribe to notifications. So just under the owner's app settings, they can they can subscribe to notification like when it's off grid, when the battery is low SOC, and there's a few others that they can subscribe to. Yes. AC coupling. Yep, we can go through that in more detail. We've got some SLDs that we can share. I'll share it with Tom and Stuart, and they can send it through as a package. Specific design questions, we'll go into it. Any distance limitation from an AC charger? Well, like I said, so you can either have the AC charger connected via Ethernet cable to any of the sources, gateway, inverter, router, or you can have it on the same Wi-Fi network. So, I mean, RJ45 LAN cable, they say theoretical max is about 100 meters. In practice, I've noticed anything around 80 meters is fine. 80 to 100 meters, it starts to have packet losses. Anything larger than that, you'd be looking at power over Ethernet solutions. It's nothing to do with Sigenergy or anything. It's just a Ethernet protocol. Uh, 10 kilowatt 3-phase model provide 5 kilowatt continuous backup per phase. No, just use 15 kilowatt.
It's a question there from Rigo. Can the Sigenergy inverter and battery be retrofitted to an existing SolarEdge inverter? Yes, they can. They can be AC coupled to existing inverters via the smart port.
Yeah.
I've actually got a question for you, Pradeep.
Yep.
Can you, when you're AC coupling the Sigenergy inverter to an existing solar system, and it's purely just AC coupled, so there's no DC coming into the Sigenergy inverter, does the Sigenergy have the capability to black start in that situation?
Yeah, it does. But the question was, there was an Airbnb, one of the customers had it at Airbnb, and the problem was the batteries were completely zero. And the thing is, in this case, it was an in-phase system, and the in-phase was relying on the Sigenergy to supply power, and the Sigenergy was relying on the in-phase to get the solar power. So
Yeah.
in that scenario, it doesn't work. So you have to have some DC panels to the Sigenergy in the scenario that the batteries are completely down, completely zero. Otherwise, if you've got some backup reserve stored, for example, you can set the backup reserve to 5 or 10% on the Sigenergy. So you've still got that battery power to start up that end phase, which will then get the power from the PV, and then the cycle continues. So technically, Sigenergy can black start by itself, but when you're AC coupling and it's completely out of juice, it's like chicken and egg situation. There's no power coming at all.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's excellent.
Minimum and max PV on as per CC. So CC has nothing to do with the oversizing. Oversizing is totally a manufacturer declaration that I'll provide. And you'll just have to look at the data sheet of the panels. You look at the VOC, you look at your ISC, and then, it's solar design 101 basically. So you can oversize as long as you don't go over the ISC and VOC. Stock levels, online shop shows no. There should be plenty of stock now. There was a little bit of a shortage a little bit during Christmas time, simply because no one anticipated such a rapid growth. But I think all the stock is replenished, and we've got plenty of local stock as well on hand.
Yeah, I can't see that question in here, but stock, I can't see who answered it, but I might reach out to them afterwards. It depends where your home warehouse is selected in the system. So yeah, if you can contact your AC Solar Warehouse account manager, whoever asked that question, they'll be able to set up your account on the online store to make sure you're accessing like stock quantities.
Maybe last few questions. So remote power sensor, we are working on our own wireless meter solution. I don't want to give a timeline because I don't know exactly, but we're looking before H2 this year. That will be a remote wireless power sensor. In the meantime, there's a lot of third-party products that we've tested and work really well. One of the guys, one of our very great retailers, very big supporter of Sigenergy, they've used this product called AccuMesh. It's on our Facebook page. You can have a look at the pictures and the comments. I think it's around 600 plus meters away, 100-meter elevation dip, and it seems to work fine. That product is called AccuMesh. It's wireless RS485. In UK, they use products like LORA, Long Range LoRa. There's a few others wireless RS485 solutions for now in the interim till we get our own. Cool. I think there's a lot of specific questions. So what we'll do is we'll probably stay back. We'll go through the questions. We'll answer it directly to you guys, either via email, or you guys can have our contact details.
Yeah, I think that's about all of them, Pradeep. There's only like one. There's probably 2 questions left, which I think, we can chat. But look, what is the minimum status charge overnight for full warranty support? A lot of this stuff we can send through, like when we send through data sheets and things like that tomorrow. It'll be an opportunity to come back to AC Solar Warehouse with anything you thought of, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. But yes, I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you again for, I see we still got about 95% of the people we started with. So thanks everyone for sticking around. We really appreciate it. We hope you got some value out of that. And yes, please be in touch at any point in the future, and we're happy to help you with all your Sigenergy and Gateway and labeling needs. Thanks, Pradeep. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate the support and the time as well. And thanks, AC Solar Warehouse, for organizing this. Brilliant. Well done.
Thanks, Pradeep. Well done, mate. Talk soon.
Cheers, everyone.